This announcement today recognizes that Empire actor Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. My concern is that hate crimes will now publicly be met with a level of skepticism that previously didn't happen.
How can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
To be quite honest, it's shameful.
An angry Chicago police superintendent today laying out the case that they have against Jussie Smollett, who is now charged with falsifying this alleged hate crime, planning a bogus hate crime, including mailing a letter to himself, as the assistant state attorney laid out in intricate detail. Now, when this first happened and his explanation for it, everyone seemed to weigh in, including presidential candidates. Cory Booker and Kamala Harris both called it a modern-day lynching in tweets. Just moments ago, Senator Harris released a statement about this after being asked repeatedly on the trail about it. Like most of you, I've seen the reports about Jussie Smollett, and I'm sad, frustrated, and disappointed. When anyone makes false claims to police, it not only diverts resources away from serious investigations, but it makes it more difficult for other victims of crime to come forward. At the same time, we must speak the truth. Hate crimes are on the rise in America. Part of the tragedy of this situation is that it distracts from that truth and has been seized by some who would like to dismiss and downplay the very real problems that we must address. We should not allow that. I will always condemn racism and homophobia. We must always confront hate directly, and we must always seek justice. Kamala Harris there from the trail. Let's bring in our panel. Matthew Continetti, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon, national security analyst Morgan Ortagus, and Jonathan Swan, national political reporter for Axios. Pretty well worded, Jonathan, in that response, but a sticky issue for these candidates who obviously went down the road when this first came out.
Right. The first statement was, passionate and righteous, and she was asked about it. There was a piece of video where she was asked about it and sort of had this strange moment where she turned to her staff looking quite irritated, and then turned back and clearly thought more about it and put out this statement. There have been other politicians. I think Nancy Pelosi deleted her tweet initially where she condemned this. So there was a whole lot of people who initially condemned this who are now in various ways trying to quietly walk it back.
Morgan, the police superintendent in Chicago, I think a lot of people were riveted by Eddie Johnson. Here's another piece of it.
How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face? To make things worse, the accusations within this phony attack received national attention for weeks. When you get the opportunity, the shooting victims and families in this city that are victims of those crimes, give them the same amount of attention.
Morgan.
Yeah, I thought the police chief did an excellent job there, but what he did leave out of that press conference was the political element to this, and that's why this has gotten more coverage than all of the tragic murders that the police chief spoke about. And so I did think it was a missed opportunity to talk about that. One thing that we have learned is that Jussie Smollett is a great actor. I've watched him on Empire, but he's a terrible writer. When we see what he staged, not only in this attack, but in the letter, and of course the resources that were diverted. One thing I would say, just going back to Kamala Harris, one thing to remember is there are plenty of people who voted for President Trump in 2016 that also voted for Barack Obama. So I think while it might not help her in a primary, it's important to remember those voters and to keep those voters in the back of her mind, and to remember that those people could still potentially be winnable. And whenever she addresses it fairly and shows that she's not biased to everyone that is supportive of Trump, there may be an opening there.
The president did not stay out of this. Some said they thought he might, but he did not. At Jussie Smollett, what about MAGA and the tens of millions of people you insulted with your racist and dangerous comments? Hashtag Make America Great Again. Notably, he didn't tweet about the Coast Guard officer who was arrested by the FBI and his background of planning white nationalist killings. But your thoughts in the big picture here, Matthew, as we look at kind of where we are in this culture moment? We're
nowhere good. Like, the same people who rushed to embrace Smollett's faux story were the people who rushed to criticize the Covington Catholic boys when that snippet of viral video came out from the pro-life movement march in D.C. And what is the connective tissue, right? It's a willingness to believe the worst of Donald Trump and his supporters. And that's why people rushed to back Smollett. That's why they rushed to condemn the Covington Catholic boys. And now, Republicans sometimes are always eager to embrace the worst critiques of Democrats, but we see time and time again that the mainstream media amplifies the liberal critique of Republicans to a far greater extent than it does the conservative critique of Democrats. And this willingness to believe narratives, no matter their truth, is very dangerous to democracy, which depends, Brett, as we know, on evidence and patience.
You've seen the president and how he deals with Twitter, and obviously he saw this moment as a political, like, hey, this is the point. My supporters are getting blamed for everything.
To his defense, I mean, it wasn't Trump who inserted himself in this moment. It was Jussie Smollett. I mean, he's the one who said that the people were walking around Chicago saying this is MAGA country, you know, lynching people, etc. So, you know, this was not something that Trump inserted himself in. He was explicitly inserted in the story by the hoaxer. So I will give Trump some defense there.
There you go.